Hey, how's it going? My name's Raphael. So I just wanted to throw a video together about a couple things. I see a lot of questions that people have asking about using a collision light or a strobe light during the day in order to help them see their drone better for visual line of sight. And I also want to touch on visual line of sight. A couple caveats to everything. Number one, this obviously just applies to people in the United States of America. And the other caveat is I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. I'm just telling you what the law states. I see a lot of posts online and it can be confusing for individuals, so I just wanted to clarify everything. So one of the first things I always see in comments and posts is visual line of sight and what people's interpretation of that is. And it can be confusing for somebody who's new to flying drones. So even when I was taking my Part 107, any of the study guides and everything else, and the test itself, you know, just mentioned visual line of sight, but it didn't really ever define what visual line of sight is. You've got individuals who think, you know, visual line of sight means I can see my drone at all times. Other people will say that visual line of sight means that through using your controller or your screen and the airspace, as long as you can see on your screen a general location of where your drone is and be able to provide obstacle avoidance with it, you're good. So I just wanted to clarify everything. And to do that, I reached out to the FAA. If you don't know, on the FAA website, you can submit questions. I got a response within like 5 minutes after sending the question via email. So they are monitoring it, and it is a pretty quick turnaround. So first, I'll read exactly what my message to them was. I see many people describing visual line of sight as something different. What does the FAA define visual line of sight as? Does this mean I have to be able to see and point at my drone, or I know the area my drone is in and I can visually see if there are any obstacles or hazards in the area? So through viewing my screen to understand the vicinity of where I'm flying and no obstacles are between me and the drone, and the airspace surrounding my drone is visible to me, is this considered visual line of sight? Or is it, as I've mentioned before, if I'm in an open field, no obstacles, I must be able to physically see my drone with an unaided eye at any moment? Thank you for the clarification. So their response, verbatim: the Part 107 visual line of sight requirement is likely one of the least understood and consequently the most abused provision of law. 107.31 states, with emphasis added, Subbullet Alpha, with vision that is unaided by any device other than corrective lenses, the remote pilot and command, the visual observer, if one is used, and the person manipulating the flight control of the small unmanned aircraft system must be able to see the unmanned aircraft through the entire flight in order to know the unmanned aircraft's location, determine the unmanned aircraft's attitude, altitude, and direction of flight, and observe the airspace for other air traffic or hazards, and determine that the unmanned aircraft does not endanger the life or property of another. It is the in order to aspect of the law that is often overlooked. If a remote pilot takes their drone to the limits of their visual acuity and is staring at a speck in the distance during daytime or flashing anti-collision light at night, they are technically maintaining visual line of sight. However, they are not in compliance with 107.31 because they cannot fulfill their in order to responsibilities. Since the visual line of sight requirement is performance-based, the FAA does not mandate a distance the remote pilot can take their drone to. However, recent research does give some data that is enlightening. On 24 May 2021, Public Safety Flight website posted an article about this subject. Using a DJI Mavic and Phantom 3, they found under the best circumstances during daylight, the remote pilot could comply provided the drone did not exceed 1,250 feet distance at an altitude of 200 feet. Any further and or higher, and the ability to comply becomes compromised. If the pilots were to momentarily look away and lose visual line of sight, they were unable to recapture compliant visual line of sight until the drone was back within 450 to the 900 foot range. Using the same drone at night revealed the pilot could comply as long as the drone was approximately 65 feet distant and 40 feet or less in altitude. What does this mean? The 107.31 visual line of sight requirement is far more restrictive than most assume. So again, that was from the FAA UAS Support Center. So that's verbatim by FAA. So to me, it's just that. You have to be able to see exactly where your drone is, where it's pointed, how high it is, to be compliant with visual line of sight. Again, not telling you what to do, not telling you what not to do. I'm just telling you what the law states, so our new drone pilots can, you know, follow the rules if that's what they choose to do, and not get confused by all the other, what I call Facebook lawyers out there that are arguing the visual line of sight rule. So with that, like I said, I'm in an open field. We're gonna see how far out we can get this drone and still remain good visual line of sight. We'll see what the distance is on that. And then I will attach a strobe to the bottom and see if that helps any more with figuring out the visual line of sight requirements. All right, so equipment, we're gonna use the DJI Mavic 3. I also have the Firehouse Arc 5 strobe light, and I'll be using the regular controller with my iPhone attached. So I did not measure out this field prior to, so we'll just use the measurements based off of the app to let us know how far we are. Okay, so UAV forecast says that we're good to go. We're going to try to get this done quick because it's I can start feeling some precipitation in the air, but our current conditions: temperature 64 degrees, winds 1 mile per hour gusting to 5, visibility is 10 miles, 89% cloud cover, and we have 14 satellites locked. We'll just take a look, verify that we're good to go. So prepare for flight is clear, airspace is clear, forecast is clear, air traffic is clear, winds, gust, visibility 10 miles. Okay, so all systems look good this way. So let's go ahead and get this thing going. Okay, so we're currently at 20 feet and going forward, 20 feet in altitude. Still got good line of sight. Okay, so I am 275 feet away. I can barely make out the drone at this point in time. I can see my flashing green lights because there's a lot of cloud cover right now. But from a side profile, let's try to get a good side profile here. From a side profile, see if I can get a profile that, so from this profile here, I cannot make out where my drone is against the backdrop. I can barely see one of the flashing lights. So let me bring it back. Okay, so now we're going to throw this strobe on there and see if we have any better visual on it. So mind you, like I said, I was at the distance of the field. I was right up against some trees. So that was probably without a doubt the furthest I'd be able to see. Okay, so we'll put this bad boy on there and we'll turn it on. There we go. Okay, let's see if that gives us any better. So we'll get back up to get back up to 20 feet. Too high there. All right, there's 20 feet. Try to get us to where I was so we can get the same. Okay, so at 500 it's about, at 500 feet it's about the same. I still really can't make anything out. I'm gonna climb a little bit just to see if that, and get off the green background of the trees. Okay, so during the day at 87 feet, 500 feet away, I don't even see that strobe actuating. So let's get it back down to 20. Okay, it's rotated around. So let's say this, I can definitely see myself through the drone better than I can see the drone right now. But going back to that whole part about not only being able to see where your drone is, but knowing exactly which way it's facing. You know, right now I can say, yeah, I know it's facing towards me because I can see all my lights. But either A, you might be on a drone that doesn't have lights. Let's get back to 20 feet there. So either A, you might be on a drone that doesn't have lights, or, you know, so you can see from this profile here. So I see red lights and I see my strobe, right? When I'm in forward flight. If I turn this drone completely around, I could see my greens. So You could definitely argue that, well, I can see if you have like a DJI that has lights, you can argue that you can tell which way your drone's facing based off of the lights. I just don't like to leave anything up to an argument. Hey guys, sorry, location change. We just barely beat the rain there. So my thoughts on whether or not the anti-collision lights increases my visual line of sight. Short answer is no. I was able to, find my drone a lot easier if I lost visual line of sight with it, but it definitely didn't really extend anything. And actually when I climbed up higher to 100 foot, like you saw, I'm not sure if you'll be able to make it out in the video or not. I could not even see the strobe anymore. Quite frankly, I thought it fell off until I came back down and saw the strobe flashing. So many could argue if you fly higher, it's easier to see it. So most of the time, if I'm flying my drone, I'm usually not that high up, probably 100 foot max, unless if I'm trying to see a big, large area. But the thing is, the higher you go, the harder it is to see those position lights on your drone. So again, I'm not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. I'm just trying to help out new drone pilots understand the FAA rules, because it is probably one of the biggest things that I see argued back and forth is visual line of sight. So I just wanted to touch on that. And again, like I said, I saw a lot of questions asking if certain position lights helped individuals see their drone further during the day. And as you could see, it was overcast today, which in my opinion is probably the easiest way to maintain sight of your drone when there's not sun blaring at you on top of it. But do with it as you will. Hopefully this was beneficial to you if you've been thinking about what does visual line of sight mean, or if you've been wondering if you buy a strobe, if it'll help you get a little bit further with visual line of sight. If you have any other questions, just pop them down in the comments and we can discuss it down there. I'm not an FAA expert. I just asked the question of the FAA for their clarification from their words about visual line of sight. All right, thanks. Have a good day.